Hello, everyone. It is Jeannie Walters with Experience Investigators, and it is another Friday. Here we are live with you. We're going to go over an exciting new tool we have to help you calculate some of the return that you can get on the investment in customer experience, particularly around customer lifetime value and some other key metrics to help you really play with what would happen if you could invest in customer experience and get those returns that we know you can. So, for those of you who don't know me, I am the founder and CEO of a company called Experience Investigators. I have been in the customer experience space for more than 20 years now, and I specialize in really helping organizations think more strategically and create fewer ruined days for their customers. We do this through keynote speaking, through workshops, through lots of resources, and coaching and consulting as well. So, today, as always, we have with us our Director of Marketing, David Hornreich. David will be looking for your questions in the chat. So be sure that you go ahead and include where you're joining us from. We always love to hear that. And also what questions you may have. This is an exciting thing because we're going to be sharing this with you first. So this is something that is not totally public yet. It is live, but this is a preview for those of you who join us week after week here on our live sessions. And if you want some reminders about these sessions, we do both live and recorded episodes or live or recorded episodes every Friday. If you don't want to miss one, be sure you subscribe by joining us on YouTube and subscribing there, or just mark your calendar and join us when you can. So why don't we go ahead and get started? And as you join us, feel free to add to that chat. Let us know where you're joining. Let us know what questions you have. So today we're going to be talking about a new tool that we've developed. It is definitely a pilot, and we want your feedback. This is something that we would love to know. What can we do to make this a little more valuable for you? Are there things missing? Anything like that? But our hope is that when you are looking at customer experience, we know that we talk a lot here about the many, many benefits of investing in an intentional and positive customer experience. Because guess what? Even if you're not investing and even if you aren't intentional about it, customer experience is still happening. Now, we might not be measuring it. We might not be seeing those returns. And in fact, we might not be understanding the losses of not intentionally designing a proactive and positive customer experience. But if we actually look to that investment and understand what returns we can get to the bottom line of our organization, we can start having conversations with leaders and executives in a totally new way, because this is about driving results for your business through superior customer experience. So today we're going to be talking about the calculator, and we're going to pull it up a little bigger here. And what we'll be doing is actually walking through some of the numbers that you can use in order to really drive that type of return in your organization. So the first thing we're going to look at is, what are the numbers that you need? And some of these might be easier to come by than others. That's okay. The whole idea of this calculator is that you can look through this even if you don't have those numbers handy. We have some sample numbers in there. So you can just see what could happen if you invest in this way. So we're going to be asking you for 4 numbers. The first is customers per year. This is the number of unique customers you have within the given last year or average year if you have that information. You're also going to want to look at the purchases per year. Now, these are different because some customers make multiple purchases, so you'll be identifying both the number of customers per year as well as the number of purchases per year. Then we're going to look at how many of those customers do you lose per year. Now, this is an important thing to track that some organizations don't track maybe as well as they should. So there are different ways to calculate this, but essentially, if you have the number of customers that you've lost per year, you can enter that into this calculator to get some of these key metrics. And then, of course, your total annual revenue, because at the end of the day, this is about driving that revenue, making sure that we are providing those bottom line results based on the investment in the customer experience. So we're going to use those numbers and we're going to calculate and then reveal for you what your customer lifetime value is, CLV. Some of you have heard of this, or some other metrics as well that might help drive that conversation with your executives and your leadership to show them the real results on this type of investment. Now, each of the numbers that we're highlighting is critical to the bottom line. So that's the whole idea here. We're really trying to emphasize the numbers that will drive those bottom line results. And we believe that each of these numbers can be improved through improved customer experience. And that's why this is a return on that investment. If we improve the customer's journey, if we make those critical touch points that matter to them more meaningful and more enjoyable, frankly, if we make sure that we are proactively addressing their needs instead of constantly reacting, then we will see these numbers that we're going to talk about go up. It is a direct relationship. And then finally, once you have these numbers, you put all of those in, then you will see this interactive tool to see how you can play with this. You can make some small improvements to the metrics. You can make sure that if you did happen to lose fewer customers in a year, what would that mean for your bottom line? So we'll show you all of that in the end result of this calculator as well. And I want to highlight here, everything that's entered in here, we do not keep this data. It is totally confidential. This is a tool just so you can really see what that investment would be for your organization. And David's here, and he's really the brains behind putting this calculator together. So is there anything I missed in this intro, David?
Hello. No, I think that you explained it really, really well. I'll go one step further and say that anything entered in this calculator, we can't even see. If there's any, you don't need to have any reluctance about entering like revenue numbers or anything like that. We're not capturing that data or using it in any way. So have fun with it.
Yep. And the link that's out there right now, there's no entering any information, right? This is just a tool that's available.
Yep.
Excellent. Okay. So this is something literally just to help you. So let's go ahead and walk through it and we'll show you how this actually works. So once you move through this calculator, the next step here is entering those initial numbers that we talked about. So again, if you don't have those numbers handy, we have some inputs here for you. And some of these might be changing. We're kind of playing around. But if you actually have those numbers, this is a great place to go ahead and enter them to the best of your ability. This will give you a more accurate picture of what some of these lifts in these numbers will actually do for you, for your bottom line organization and the results that you get there. So you want to enter in that number of customers per year. You can see there are little question marks. That is to help you to really showcase what each of these is. This is that unique customers per year number. And then it explains a little bit how we are asking you to calculate this. So count each customer once, even if they have many, many purchases with you. We just want to talk about the individual customer. And then you want to put in your number of purchases per year. Similar approach. You want to actually count up the purchases instead of the customers. Number of customers lost per year, and then your revenue per year. Now, again, this is a tool. So if you don't have these numbers perfect, that's okay. Put in the numbers that you know, put in the numbers that you think could change, and have fun with it. So should we change anything here, David? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm kind of curious to hear from the audience if there's any. I feel like I'm Bob Barker on The Price is Right, like taking bids.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any numbers for these four figures that they would like us to play around with?
This is very exciting. This is
really fun. I've been playing around with this calculator for a couple days now, and it's always just been whatever I put in. So getting this kind of third-party input is really exciting. While people are typing in their numbers, I just want to say hello to Naveen here in the chat. Mark, good to see you again. Tyler joining us from Ohio today.
Nice.
Not Colorado. I don't know if the weather's any better in Ohio, but
I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that one. It seems like there's a universal weather kind of critique going on in the United States. We're all experiencing lots of weather right now.
Antonia, great to see you in the Twin Cities. I imagine it's pretty cold there as well. And Laisa from Brazil, where I'm guessing it's not snowing.
Yes.
Maybe at higher altitudes. So we're just gonna have to stick with these numbers. I think
Okay,
nobody's chiming in with bids. So let's stick with these numbers as our starting point
excellent.
and move right through.
So
Um,
so let's
we,
go ahead and hit that button and find out what these reveal for
all
us.
right, let's do it.
So here you go. These are some of the key metrics that you can use to really determine what does this all mean. So the first one is the churn rate. The churn rate is essentially what rate of customers are you losing based on the amount of customers that you're gaining, based on the amount of customers that you have. So the churn rate is something to really pay attention to. And ironically, we don't track this in many places. A lot of organizations that I go into and talk to, they actually get very excited about their acquisition rates and they tell me that they've had a lot of growth. But when you look at how many customers are actually leaving, the churn rate is pretty high. And so if you're not paying attention to those customers that are leaving you at the same time as the customers who are joining you, you can get caught kind of flat footed by not knowing that. So the churn rate is super helpful to know. We also look at average purchase frequency. How often are customers buying things from you? How often are they making those repeat purchases? Are they buying the next great thing? Are they taking that next action? So if they are getting 2.33 purchases a year, that gives you information as well. And if you could grow that just a little, what would that mean for your bottom line? It would be the same amount of customers, even, but if they make a few more purchases, that could add up to some real value. And then we want to look at your customer average purchase value. So, this is the value of an average purchase, regardless of whether made by a new or returning customer. So, you kind of add up all those customers, you look for that average purchase value. And again, think about something like this. If you could turn up that average just a little, if you could make sure that every customer has, purchased just a smidge more dollar wise with you, that can mean real results for your overall bottom line, especially if you're not investing in just acquiring, because you already have the customers and you're retaining them and you're keeping them loyal and happy customers. And then we want to look at the average lifespan. And this is something that, again, depends on the type of organization that you have. Sometimes these numbers don't apply as readily, but that's okay. Play with what you can. The average lifespan is essentially how long does a customer stay with your company. So in this case, we do this in years. In some cases, you may want to play around with this and think about it in months. There are different ways to really look at this. But essentially, it's by understanding your churn rate, understanding how often, or not how often, how long customers stay with you. And that gives you information as well. And again, if you could turn up the volume on those loyal customers for longer, that's another way to get the value out of customer experience. So each one of these could help your organization, even if you're only focused on one. If you could reduce your churn rate and increase your average lifespan, just think about the value that that could bring your organization. We also look at customer average annual value. And of course, this is what are you getting from each customer per year as an average. So all of these averages, all of things like that, they're a gauge. They're a way for us to look at what are we really doing for our customers? How are they engaging with us? How are they showing us through their dollars, their loyalty? And how can we help them be more loyal? How can we invest in that a little bit more? And then finally, we look at the customer lifetime value. Now, this number is one that, if you can figure this out well, if you can really get this number, then you can start seeing very directly what it would mean if you could invest in the customer experience, keep customers longer, increase those average purchase values. Once you get to the customer lifetime value, this really tells you, wow, you know what? Each customer is worth this over their lifetime to us. That means that if we could crank this up just a little bit, that could be hundreds of thousands, that could be millions of dollars without investing in the sales, in the acquisition, without getting new customers. This is about making sure that the customers we have are happy and loyal and providing that value to our organization. So at this point, you have all of these numbers now that you can start thinking about, that you can start saying, you know what, we've been talking a lot about improving this part of the journey. Well, we know that we lose people during this part of the journey. What if we fixed at that? Well, would that actually improve our average lifespan with a customer? And if so, would that improve our average purchase uh, per customer? All of those things. And then eventually you can translate that into the customer lifetime value. So I know there are a lot of different numbers here that we're talking about. And I know that I am definitely kind of a more nuanced person. Sometimes I get lost in these numbers too. But what I found is that by talking through this and by figuring out, even in round numbers, what does that look like for our organization? You can start attracting the attention of the people who are numbers driven, who are results driven. When they start hearing things like, you know what, if we invest in this part of the customer journey, and let's say we think it's going to take, I don't know, $50,000 to solve this part of the journey. Well, then you can say, if we solve this, and if we actually could stop losing people at this phase of the journey, and we could keep them longer, if we could keep them a year longer or 3 years longer, then you can start using these numbers to tell that story about what that return will actually be. And that's what sometimes we don't have the conversation about in customer experience. We talk a lot about big ideas. We talk a lot about doing what's right for our customers, but we don't always get into the nitty gritty of the return on the investment. And that's what we hope this calculator helps you do. It helps you have those conversations that are super necessary. And it helps you see, it helps you have that vision of what is actually possible once we start investing in the right places in the customer journey, once we start recognizing that there are things we can do. And then the last piece here is really looking at what would happen if. What would happen if you could decrease your churn rate? What would happen if you could increase your number of customers? What would happen if you could increase your average purchase value? All of those things. And you'll see here that you can play around with this and you can see how that would affect your customer lifetime value, your annual revenue, just by clicking some buttons here, you're seeing numbers go up. So just by increasing or decreasing, sorry, we always want to decrease the churn rate by 2.5%. It doesn't sound too daunting, right? And we increase our number of customers by 1%. And we increase the average purchase value by 1%. And then we increase the average purchase frequency by 2%. None of that is unrealistic or off the wall thinking. Yet, if we did that, we could move our annual revenue to more than $300,000 from where it was without changing anything else. So once you get into these bigger numbers, if you have an organization that's well into the millions, you can see how some of these tweaks make a huge difference. But even if you're a smaller organization and you're thinking through this, thinking, well, we're not close to that annual revenue, look at the customer lifetime value. What would it do for your organization to increase the customer lifetime value of each customer that you have? That's what moves small to medium. That's what moves medium organizations to large organizations. Once you start increasing those numbers, then you start taking leaps and bounds as an organization and you can scale in new ways too. So there are tons of ways to really look at this and slice and dice it and think about it and investigate what's possible. But this is really about understanding that this is not an exercise in just, an intellectual exercise. This is about real results. And those are the conversations we want you to have. So, anything that I didn't cover there, David, that you want to talk about in this awesome calculator?
No, I think that was a fantastic walkthrough, and we've got some great questions and comments coming in from the chat. So I think let's throw it over to those. I want to say hi also to Palumi, who has a question. We're going to get to that question in just a second. I want to say hi to Will from UserSnap, Will Perlmutter. I was like, I know that name in the
Yeah.
chat. Helene joining us from New Hampshire. Gloria in Chicago. Great to have
Oh,
all of
Gloria.
you. Let's jump
Can I
to.
give Gloria a little shout out because
Oh, yeah.
she was one of the CX Emerging Leaders Award winners from the CXPA that I was a judge on, and so congratulations to Gloria again.
Nice. Congratulations to Gloria. So let's jump to Palumi's question here. So how do you calculate and how do you define the number of customers lost? This is a tricky one.
Yeah. So this is it. You guys love when I say this. It depends. But essentially, what we're doing is we're trying to determine, okay, let's say you get, I'm going to use really small numbers here. Let's say you get 10 customers, you have 10 customers in a year. But then at the end of the year, you look and those same 10 customers, 6 of them have walked away. That's what we're trying to find out. So you can do this in a couple different ways. And actually, I go through a lot of this in a recent blog where I go step by step in detail about how to calculate some of these things and the different ways to do it. So I don't know if we have that link handy, but we can put that link out there for you. But there's a whole group of ways that you can do this because some people look at churn a lot and they understand it and they understand how many customers they lose that way. Other times you kind of have to guess. You have to look at general numbers and then average out kind of how many customers are lost in a year. So I know that's not a perfect answer for you, but this, let me see if I can pull it up here, but we'll drop that. There it is. The link is in the chat there. And I would recommend you take a look at that because we not only go through customer lifetime value there, but I actually tried to kind of give you everything in the kitchen sink about all the different ways that you can look for return on investment in customer experience. And we're going to be talking about this a lot more in the coming weeks and months. We're putting together some more tools around this. So with this particular tool, we don't have too much about that specific thing, but you can look at that blog to give you some guidance on how to figure that out. I hope that helps.
So Tyler asks a question that I would love to know the answer to.
Oh boy.
For a B2B company, is there more use to thinking about customer lifetime value for channel partners or for end users?
Very interesting question.
Mm-hmm.
Always from Tyler. Tyler always brings his A game here. I appreciate that. So, yes, I would say yes. The conversation in B2B often is about, are we selling to buyers? Are we partnering or are we selling to end users? And in many ways, it does make sense to look at your partners or your buyers as the customer in this formula. However, if you are a B2B business where you get the revenue based on end users, then obviously there's value in looking at that as well. But a lot of B2B organizations don't actually earn revenue from their end users. They earn the revenue from the buyer who then provides that to their end users. So you really have to look at how your organization is set up and determine kind of where is that revenue coming from and what is driving our bottom line, because that's what this calculator is all about. That's what this discussion is all about. So while I'm going to be the first one to say, never abandon those end users. They are very important to the customer journey. You have to understand their experience. You have to invest in their experience. By doing that, then they will tell those buyers, you know what, we like this, we want this, we please renew, all of those things. So you have to invest in that end user experience, but at the same time, when you're looking at just what drives revenue, that might be about the buyers or, to your point, the channel partners as well. And so you kind of have to break down what is your business actually selling and who is actually driving that revenue. How do you apply that to the bottom line here?
So if this is your first video, well, number one, I recommend you will go back and watch all of our other videos on YouTube. The whole archive is there. But in our past videos, we talk a lot about CX specific metrics, NPS, CES, all of these things. Now we're talking about more company-wide metrics. So I've got a couple of questions. They're related. I want to present them both to you, Jeannie.
Sure.
First from Will. What would be an example of connecting this amazing calculator to an increase in a CX metric that's also currently present in company discussions? And to piggyback that, Mark says, that's a great tool. Were any users able to correlate voice of the customer metrics with these numbers?
Mm-hmm. Ooh, I love these questions. So first of all, I'm going to refer to a specific tool that we released a while ago called the CX Success Statement. We have a workbook about that. And essentially what that does is help you think through What are those organizational metrics that you're following? What are those VOC or CX metrics that you want to track? And how do you connect those things? Because let's take churn rate, for instance. If we looked at churn rate and we say we need to decrease churn rate, well, how would we do that? And how do we know we're doing that? Well, if we want to, let's say, look at, you know what, we could improve our renewal rate. That could be a CX metric that you're following, renewal rate, along with NPS at a key point in that customer's journey. So if your NPS is going up, maybe a few months before renewal, then you can start drawing that line to, is the renewal going up as well? Well, great. Well, if our renewal is going up, then that should mean that our churn rate is going down. And that should mean that we're getting more average purchase value from each customer, and their customer lifetime value is going up. So it's kind of like you have to draw out, where do these things actually connect? And then you have to track them accordingly. So if we know that our NPS score has an impact in this part of the journey, along with renewal rate, we can start identifying, okay, if NPS goes up, that means renewal goes up this much, churn rate goes down this much, and we're finding that that provides X number of dollars for our customer lifetime value. Those are the conversations that can be very, very powerful. And so once you know this information about your customer lifetime value and your average purchase and all of these things, then that empowers you to start drawing a dotted line back and saying, what CX metrics do we really need to look at? What is our VOC program really telling us? And how can we connect those dots back and forth? So I'm also a big believer that with VOC programs, it's great to have a listening map where you actually identify what information would really help us. What do we really want to know? So that we're not just throwing things at the customer for feedback, we're doing it in a strategic way. And if you have that listening map, then you can also start playing around with that. And you can say, okay, after a year, we found that if we ask the question here about customer satisfaction, and then we, can improve this part and see that customer satisfaction going up, well, look at that. They purchase more, they upsell more, they renew more, whatever it is. So there are many, many ways to look at that. But I encourage you to look at the success statement workbook, because that does help you think through a lot of what your organizational goals are and how that drives both customer experience goals and vice versa. And so it's a process, but it really can be very impactful.
I want to give a belated hello to Olatoye, who says, hello, this is interesting. I'm glad that you're interested. I'm pretty interested in it too. I also want to say hi to Jackson, who's joining us again. Good to see you. And Jackson has a comment that I want to share.
Mhm.
Jackson says, I see this a lot with dental practices. Patient reappointment and diagnostic percentages mean so much more than new patients. Sometimes growth in customers means working hard but not smart. Talk about seeing the ice below the water. And we've got a little, I think that's the Titanic about to crash into an iceberg in emojis.
Emojis for the win. Love it, Jackson. Yeah. And I think that you bring up a really good point, because what we always say in customer experience, right? Like, it's not all about the acquisition. It's not all about the new customers. If you treat your current customers well, if you really dedicate yourself to investing in the customer experience, the retention of those customers and the loyalty of those customers actually drives new customer growth, because they're going to give you more referrals. They're going to give you more word of mouth marketing, all of those things. And in fact, there's data out there that shows referred customers actually spend more with your organization than those who came in any other way. So if you can increase referrals, you can do more than just gain, customers without a sales process. You can actually get customers who are more likely to trust you coming in the door, and they're more likely to spend more money with you. So that's where some of these investments come in too. If we can start connecting those dots, you can start seeing how powerful this story is. So great examples there, Jackson. Thank you.
I want to give folks just a moment to type in any more questions that you've got about this tool or CX metrics, or really customer experience in general.
And feel free to give David a shout out in the comments for putting this tool together, because He did a great job. So yay.
Yes, I will accept your shout outs. Thank you.
And yeah, I just want to reiterate too, this is kind of the start. We really are looking for what tools do you need. This is, of course, part of our Year of CX program, which you can still sign up for at yearofcx.com, where we are releasing different tools and downloadables and things like that throughout the year. But this is also just available because we feel like it's such an important tool for everybody. We will be diving into some of those other things that we talked about in that return on investment blog that we posted. Things like, how do you look at your employee experience and how do you improve that in order to get that return? There are all sorts of layers to this that are really fascinating that we'll be digging into in the next few weeks and months. But if there are specific things that you want to see, we certainly want to hear that. If there's feedback on this tool, we are sharing this with you first because you are our community. You're here week after week. We so appreciate that. And so we wanted to share this with you and get your feedback. So feel free, if you have questions or you find things, email David, email me, and we will see what we can do about that because we know this is a work in progress.
And we did get a question, where can we get the tool? That's a perfect question. What a wonderful lead in. Thank you. Here is where you can try the calculator, bit.ly/CLV metrics.
Yep. And of course, you can also sign up for Year of CX.
Mhm.
You can join us on the blog at experienceinvestigators.com, all sorts of places that we are available for you. So please feel free to figure that out and join us. So, okay. Anything else?
That's it. Let's see. Do we have, oh, nope. I thought
Everybody's
we had another question, but it's just Gloria with a shout out to
I
me.
love it.
Thank you. Thank you, Gloria. And Gloria, again, congratulations. What an exciting time for both of us.
Well, and yeah, Gloria has a really interesting story. So she was an excellent choice for a winner this year. And yeah, I'm glad that you got a shout out, David, because you deserve it. Everybody loves David. We hear about that every week. And we are also just we hear from you guys that are trying to make change. We are really hearing about those of you who maybe don't have customer experience in your title, but you are really understanding why this is so important and you're kind of in the trenches trying to make change every day. And we really appreciate and support that. And so these resources are for those of you out there really trying to make things happen. And it's our privilege to kind of be a part of that journey with you. So thank you so much for being here with us this week and every week. And we will, of course, continue to release things like this. We will continue to do our best to provide those tools that help push your customer experience forward. And as you've heard me say, by being here, you're helping us live our mission, which is to create fewer ruined days for customers. So thank you for being here. Thank you again for all of the great support and feedback. We look forward to continuing to hear that from you and to see you along your journey. So thank you. Until next time, see you then.